Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Singer, founder and president of Circle Lighting. Thank you for joining us today. I am very excited about this panel. Clint Smith, Bobby McAlpine, and Melanie Turner, all who really don't need any introduction, but here we go. Melanie Turner Interiors has been recognized 3 times as ADAC Southeastern Residential Designer of the Year, Top 10 Designer by Traditional Homes, and awarded Kitchen of the Year by Architectural Digest. Her firm has won over 30 ASID awards and has been featured in national magazines such as Veranda, House Beautiful, and Traditional Home. MTI's design projects are located throughout the United States and Mexico, and the firm has recently opened a store in Big Sky, Montana. Melanie's passion for designing beautiful interiors transpires into sophisticated yet unassuming spaces that change the way people live. Her first book, Inviting Interiors, was published this March. The first 50 lucky people who registered and attend will receive a copy. So stay tuned. Bobby designed his first house at the age of 5 and hasn't stopped since. Architect, romantic, poet, and entrepreneur, he envisions home as a timeless, graceful, and emotionally evocative place. From the time he founded his firm in 1983, he's realized this ideal in a diverse array of traditional styles and regional vernaculars for clients all over the country. Today, his firm now embraces a brilliant and eclectic family of professional architects and interior designers with offices in Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, and New York. Along with his furniture line, Bobby is the author of the critically acclaimed best-selling book, The Home Within Us, co-author of Art of the House and Poetry of Place. Clint serves as the style editor at Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles and editor-at-large for New England Home Magazine. He previously served as editor-in-chief for Veranda. Clint has his own design practice and is the author of 7 books, 4 his own and 3 he's written for other people in the design world. His next book is going to be published by Rizzoli and comes out in March of 2022. So sit back and relax as they discuss all things design, and feel free to submit questions in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. And now, Clint, take it away.
Thank you, Gail. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon to my friends on the East Coast. I'm in California this morning. Before we get started, I just want to say a huge thanks to Gail and everyone at Circa and its showrooms for hosting us this morning, or this afternoon, today. Circa is a longtime supporter of new authors and does so much support for the design community, not only in their showrooms, but behind the scenes. And we're always so appreciative of their generosity. Although I wish we could be together having this discussion in person, I'm excited for this online reunion. It's a thrill to be chatting today with 2 of my all-around favorite people. They're also 2 super talents, and I have such respect for their work. I've had the pleasure to know and get to work with designer Melanie Turner and Bobby McAlpine for almost the past 20 years. I started when I was 5. As a longtime editor, it is always a treat to publish their work. I know I'll always see something that will inspire, delight, and possibly even challenge me. Always their homes make you think about what's possible in the world of design. I think they raise the bar for all of us. As Gail mentioned, Melanie, of course, is Atlanta-based, and her new book, Inviting Interiors, has become the season's new go-to for decorating inspiration. Bobby, of course, is the esteemed architect and principal behind the architectural interiors firm McAlpine. His latest book, Poetry of Place, has become a perennial favorite, bestseller, and constant source of inspiration for experts and enthusiasts alike since it debuted in 2017. And as Gail mentioned, his other books are fantastic as well. Moving to the next slides. When I was editor-in-chief of Veranda, 2 projects landed on coveted September issues when I was there. Melanie had a beautiful Atlanta project that's featured in her book with more outtakes that did not appear in the Veranda story. And this was on our 30th anniversary issue back in 2017 when I was there. Coincidentally, this issue also featured Oprah's Rose Garden in Montecito, where I am this morning. I'm not at Oprah's, but I am in Montecito. I wish I was at Oprah's this morning in her Rose Garden, but I'm happy to be here as well. And fast forward a year later, September 2018, Bobby's own house, which we were thrilled to get to feature, appeared on the September 2018 issue. And I just remembered last night that the day after this issue went to the printer, I resigned. It had nothing to do with your project. It was a fantastic swan song. So thank you, Bobby.
Thank you for slipping it in right there at the last.
Well, I did stay on for another 6 weeks, so I did have one more issue. But between these two covers, you can see the excellent work that each of them do. And then before we get started, one last slide going way back to 2007. This was a project that Melanie had designed and Bobby was the architect on. And Melanie, I'm not even sure, had you even opened your design practice at this point?
No, I was, no, it was just doing work for Stan, my husband, and running a family. So no, I just remember when you were going to run it, you thought Bobby had done it. And you must have asked me 3 or 4 times, no, Bobby did this. I was like, no, Bobby didn't do it. I did. I mean, it was Bobby's design furniture through Lee, but no, yeah. So there was a little, there's a lot of mix there.
Well, fast forward 15 years. It's so great to be here with both of you this morning. So let's get started. So since Circa is all about lighting, I thought we'd start with that topic today. Since the two of you are so good at blending task lighting, decorative lighting, and all the other needs that today's contemporary homes and these modern lifestyles require. And as we're going through the presentation, we're just going to be scrolling through a mix of both Bobby's and Melanie's work. So Melanie, I know both of you, whenever you design your homes, you both are so good at creating beautiful light-filled public spaces, but also in private quarters or intimate dens or family rooms. I noticed that you also design for evenings. And so can you each tell me a little bit about how you approach those sorts of spaces? Melanie, do you want to go first?
I approach them from a day standpoint of beauty, because in this instance, we're looking at this dining room that I did, so that you're seeing the chandelier during the day, but then at night, we're wanting more moodiness. So you have the lamps to turn on and candles if you want, and keep your chandelier very low. So I'm constantly looking at or feeling and thinking about how it's going to feel in the day versus at night. I like to keep ceilings very clean. If you look in our spaces, you won't find vents or fire alarms or any kind of punctures. I call them pimples to the face on that 6th plane that we call the ceiling. So that's very important to keep it really clean. And then I definitely think differently of how lights are going to be used in a room during the day, which is more visual, and then at night for more mood.
Bobby?
Well, I mean, likewise, I think a lot in terms of, what do I like? What affects me? And I like it when light pulses, when it's not even. I'm really not even comfortable in places that are evenly lit, where there's consistent light everywhere throughout it. It doesn't feel like I'm being touched by anything. So I think as much about darkness as I do about light, that I like for the light to be there at its most dramatic, which requires a little darkness. And that's whether you're talking about windows and natural light or electric light, coming through. So I don't really want the feeling to be a singular feeling and pervasive throughout. I don't want that. I really like for it to come and go a little bit. I think it feels better.
So meanwhile, Bobby and I both turn off lights when we come to parties.
So both of you are so good at creating moods for your clients. and with lighting. And my question is, Melanie, when you go about that process of selecting pieces, whether it's a lamp or a sculptural chandelier or a picture light on the wall, is that something you try to convey to the clients, or is it just a big surprise once they move into their new home and they see this mood that you've created from them and how it changes from morning to daytime to evening?
Yeah, when we do our presentations, usually most of the chandeliers or fixed lighting they've seen. A lot of times we don't show lamps because we think of them as art and part of the accessories package. We do that separately. But concerning the whole feeling of lights, I mean, to us, we look at lighting as jewelry for the home, that it really needs to be special. So we try that accordingly. A lot of times I have to pull clients back because nothing bothers me more than walking into a space and seeing the kitchen lighting, the breakfast room lighting, and the family room all at once. And it's jarring for me. I feel like it's just too much going on. So a lot of times we're trying to simplify and show them that the lighting has to work together and they have to be sisters or at least cousins to each other and work together. So that's basically what we do, but we look at it as jewelry.
Great. Bobby, casting a mood for your clients?
The reason that I even have any furniture in production and furniture companies, and lighting included, is that I just have found myself from the beginning of time not finding what I need. And so there's always a lot of invention, and there's a lot of things that have to be created because it's an unusual feeling that the marketplace doesn't really have anything to do with in general. But the world has changed, at this point. And I think there's a renaissance in lighting and what's available, out there. And there are very creative companies like Circo that have changed the literacy as to light fixtures. For me, I love to select beautiful pieces, but I always walk very, very cautious of doing anything that will date a property that I've done. And so the inheritability, the longevity of something aesthetically is super important to me. So that's a fine line to walk.
Melanie, I know both you and Bobby create timeless spaces. Whenever you and are always looking at the latest trends or fads or whatever, do you have any sort of do's and don'ts when it comes to lighting? Things that every room should have X, Y, or Z, or I would never do that in a space when it comes to lighting?
To me, like reiterating what Bobby says, it's really about, I know everybody as designers always say it's about the client, but I truly think it's about the architecture first, because of living in an old home. I think of homes as if I shake the house upside down, what falls out, what stays, and the fixtures
Don't
stay.
say that. I'm in earthquake territory this
Oh,
morning.
I'm sorry, but what stays is what is a value and should work with the house. I don't want people walking in a house. I mean, it'll happen with certain trends and people want pretty things that are updated, but for the most part, I want it to be able to stay in the home. So that's really important to me. And a lot of time I try to push back and explain that to the client so that they're in more of a timeless space. So that's my big do's and don'ts. And I work with them, as much as possible for the client to be happy and to give them, if they need something more glamorous. But I really like being steeped more in classicism. Well, here's a point, as this is an older home, but there's a modern light in there, but it's a very traditional wall covering. So there is this friction between old and new that we try to do.
And Bobby, any sort of do's and don'ts
Sure. You know, I occasionally get to go back into houses that I did a long time ago. Some of them, you know, as long as, you know, over 30 years ago. And I immediately, my eyes go to what dates this house that I had something to do with, because I want to stop doing whatever that is or whatever that may be. And so I am very hyper focused right now on lighting and on ceiling punctures, as Melanie mentioned, trying to avoid can lights as much as possible in the ceiling. And also HVAC, you know, the way that a place is heated and air conditioned, because there are now so many things that are vying to pierce and pollute the serenity of the architecture, you know, between smoke detectors and security systems and and air vents and holes in ceilings and you know, all those devices that to manage all of that is very difficult to get a very peaceful and unimproved looking container,
Right.
you know, in the end, and it calms you when you're able to manage that beautifully.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very focused on that.
One of the things that I really wish people would stop doing is automatically, and a lot of specs or a lot of builders just automatically do what's called 5 cans and a fan in bedrooms. And so I walk in and it'll actually help the clients not to have that. And I was like, I'm sorry, what task is being performed in here? Like, cans are for tasks. I don't understand. Sorry, guys. But I don't understand. Like, am I at a doctor's office? Like, why do we have this? It's just kind of become norm. And I'd rather take that money and put it in a beautiful chandelier in my dining room, or like the beautiful chandeliers that Bobby puts in his living room. Like, let's spend the money there and really stand out, because I mean, there's no reason to have 4 cans.
Right. Bobby, we've been looking at some pictures of your newish Atlanta house, and although it's recently built, it's become such an icon in the city in such a short time. And of course, we're seeing these gorgeous soaring light-filled spaces, you know, juxtaposed next to these more intimate rooms.
Right.
Having built several houses for yourself over the years, including weekend retreats, I was curious, what ideas are you able to explore with this house and your new lake house that you're building that you might not do with clients?
Well, I have occasionally built a house for myself, you know, as the years go by. I do think that many times designers' own homes are the strongest examples of their work. Not that it can't be accomplished with clients, and isn't, but I think it's important to have your own laboratory, you know, and do your own experimentation. And for me, in particular, this house that we're talking about, this is a house that my partner Blake and I had a great deal to do with. We both did equally in terms of defining the mood and how we wanted the feeling to be, and what the offering is, you know, of the house to the world, inside and out. And so it shifted the story for me. And I think as an architect, you know, it always occurs to me that, you know, if I'm itching to do something and the person or the character or the client hasn't come along to ask me for it, to do it, sometimes I just can't wait. I just need to do it myself, you know, and not wait to be asked. And I know, Melanie, you've done a lot of that in your life. I actually don't know any 2 people that have set up house more times than Melanie and me.
We're gypsies. We're gypsies.
We have moved 1,000 times, and I learned it from my mother, how to do it with style, how to finish something, how to be a closer. And Melanie, I have seen you do it since I've known you. And I'm curious whether in any of our previous lives, if you were doing it then too, because I've known you a long time, this time and others.
It's true. It is true. But you are a closure. I on the house that I live in now, I'm not a closure on it because it's just, so iconic that it's just, yeah, I need to take a lesson from you. I actually just need to put my house in the line of projects and get it done, because you do get it done for your own personal self.
Yeah. And I strike the set, every
You do.
once in a while too. Where I go, that was fun. I learned this. Now I want to check this out, and see how this works.
Melanie, what do you think the key was to, shifting to various houses over the years? Because each one always had its own personality, but it was a lot of moves. So
I'm here to just tell everybody I'm having a large garage sale. Just, yeah, I get blamed in my office by saying, oh my gosh, we have so much inventory. And I was like, this is from the moves. One was a French house, one was an Italian house. It's not my fault. So what was your question? I'm sorry, Clint.
No. I was just wondering what the key was to that, because each house always had its own very unique sensibility. But I know it's a lot of work.
Yes. I don't know. I call it craziness. It's just a matter of, I think Bobby and I both are, whether you want to call it trauma or addiction, or the fact that we just love creating homes for ourselves and for others. There's this need in us and our souls to create beauty and to make other people happy. And I think that's really the basis of it. We both probably need to go to therapy though, right, Bobby?
Well, I don't think so. I think that we both live and thrive in the creative process.
Yes.
And that's not just something at work. It is our life. It's integrated, fully, in the way that we live, as well as what we're exercising at the moment, the muscles. And I think we're both extremely curious.
I think that would be the number one word as a definition, would be just curious.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yes.
So Melanie, we're looking at a few of your projects now, and in your new book, Inviting Interiors, you can see how you use bold, saturated colors judiciously, but you're also so well known for your all white ethereal interiors. And this is a great example, and we'll see others. What are there any palettes or colors you're using these days or inspiring you?
Probably where you are right now, like California sunset colors. I'm really loving the corals and the light minty greens and moody blues of sunset with a 70s kind of influence. Just more moody, more not pastel-y, but just moody sunset colors, I would say. It's interesting though, Clint, because we do work in Montana and this light or black and white feel, and people say, do you do color? And I'm like, oh, do we do color? Or the opposite happens, can you do something black and white? So it is interesting, the perception.
I was just looking at that previous image, and one thing it made me think about is, for both Bobby and Melanie, is one common thread in your work is this great connection between indoor and outdoor living. Just as we saw with that beautiful wall of windows and those gorgeous windows at your house, Bobby. The lines often become blurred these days, and being in the South, the climate allows for so much great outdoor living. How do you feel the emphasis on creating true exterior living spaces has evolved, maybe over the past 10 years?
I think it's evolved tremendously. And I think in no time more deeply probably than the last year, because of I think people who had houses but they didn't really live in them, they picked the dry cleaning up there and went on about their business, have learned how to live in a house and how to live in a yard and how important a garden is, and exterior spaces, and the fluidity between the two of them is the constant invitation, like you see in this photograph, where that garden is level with that living room. It has an indoor-outdoor relationship because of the transparency, but also because of the elevation. That outside is not, 10 feet down somewhere. It's right there outside your window. So modernism has shown up again in the last 15 years or so, and I think it is here to stay. But it is a tool that plays beautifully with a lot of other things.
Melanie?
I think so many trends start in California. And so whatever starts west, kind of, so the rest of the country follows. And so a lot of times people want this California outdoor style, which is interesting in the South. I think that the South actually started that way with front porches and being outside in screened areas to escape from the heat. And then with the invention of air conditioning in the 60s, it was kind of reversed and everybody went inside. And I think now it's nice to see that people are using their outside spaces. And to follow what Bobby says, especially during COVID, that we are using the outside as another room. And that's how landscape architects design your yard, is they design it by rooms like we do inside. And so there's different features and different feels for each of those spaces. So, I mean, me personally, I mean, my garden saved me during COVID. Like we did a victory garden. We ate dinner outside every night. So I think the outdoor space has become really important again.
And don't you think the creature comforts, and if we can also keep scrolling with the slides, but don't you think the creature comforts that people have requested have really just have amazed me? I just remember that Southeastern show house you worked on last year, Melanie, and that amazing outdoor space with that pool was unbelievable.
Yes, people are willing to spend money and want good design outside. You're referring to, it was a sunken fire pit, like a sectional and a fire pit within it, with a jacuzzi running around you. I mean, this was like stuff when we were kids that only, very rare. It was Hollywood that had that kind of stuff, and now people are wanting it in their own homes. So yes.
So as we continue to scroll through, Melanie, your own house in Atlanta is, this legendary, historic, beautiful house, but you also work on a number of historic houses for your clients. And I was curious how do you go about balancing, honoring the legacy and architectural importance of a house with your decorating, but not be mired in the past? I mean, it's got to be a tricky balance, right?
Yeah. Again, I always start with the architecture, but then think of, if let's just say it's an English Georgian house, then the furniture we would put in it has that influence, but that it has fresh fabrics and colors to modernize it. So it's, again, tagging on the 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future to make it fresh. I don't know if a lot of people pick up on that, but that's what I'm constantly trying to do. So there may be modern art in there, but the pieces in there could be Georgian to just set the tone that someone young and fresh is living there, but we have paid homage to the architecture. So that's how I try to work it.
And Bobby, when you've worked on, I know you do so many houses from the ground up, but when you've worked on historic properties, how do you go about getting that balance right? Honoring the past, but not being stuck in it?
I'll give you a very strange answer to that, because I'm so mindful of it these days, is how who we are is not locked into one place and time. Exactly. Particularly in these days where our exposure exceeds our real life experience, because what comes through to us on our phones and on our devices makes us think we have really lived all over the world and in lots of time periods. And so as our taste evolves, I think our own personal aesthetics are way more complex now than they used to be. And now I've forgotten the question.
No, honoring when you've worked on, you did so many houses from the ground up, but when you've worked on historic houses, you know, how to get that balance, honoring the architecture of what was there or the past, its history, but not being bogged down or chained to it to do something.
You know, it's like any doctrine, it needs violating, you know, and so I would say it would be more accurate is I look for ways to dishonor it. I want to establish it if it's a new house, and then I want to find a way to contradict it in a way, because I live better myself somewhere between those two, and not so well in either of the extremes. So I think the great love affair is with opposites.
Yes,
Go
I
Go
agree
ahead.
with that. And Clint, you've always pointed out just adding, like having that story when you start a house of this is direction, but it's just the beginning of the story, and then adding the different styles so it doesn't look like it was all out of one showroom or purchased in one day is so important in these historical and new built homes.
And going back to Bobby's point about the impact of what's coming through our phone and social media and all of those influences and how that is affecting our aesthetic choices, or you know, the other day I took a screen capture, or actually a couple months ago I took a screen capture of this restaurant, and then the other day I was like, when did I go there? And I was like, I haven't been there. But it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. There was details, but I had looked at the image so much I started to think I had been there. But I do think that influence is just going to have such a lasting impact on how design continues to move forward, whether that's clients who are more confused by all the choices and are going to lean to you, both of you, more to help edit them, or I'm not sure what the question is here, but Melanie, how do you see it, whether it's coming through the phone or clients presenting you with Pinterest boards, that effect of everything coming at everyone all at once and trying to make a decision?
Well, when a client does Bing, and we ask them to, I mean, it used to be tear out a magazine, and now it's your Pinterest or things that you found on Instagram. And what I find is they feel like they're all over the place. And when we look at the photographs, we can hone in exactly on what their likes are and be like, okay, it's this, and this. So I don't know how to kind of answer that question. Am I going in the right direction? Like tell me what, like.
No, yeah, I just, you know, people are exposed to so much more now, and I
Yes.
think it makes it more difficult for a design professional to.
I actually like it. It doesn't bother me. I like them coming in with as much and showing me everything. What I always say to the client is, yes, you've been exposed to social media, but then when they try to find it or buy it or invent it, that's where we come in. And I feel like as professionals, we're able to source items that you would never ever come across. You're just seeing what's an advertiser or what's in a magazine or a couple of the big boxes, and that's all they see. So that's what a lot of times they bring us. I try to show photographs of mood more than I do actual images, so that it's something different.
Yeah. Well, I really think, Clint, to what you were saying, I mean, who hasn't asked themselves the question, was that a text or was it an email? Or was it a phone call? Did we talk? Was I there? Or or is it a photograph that I've seen?
Right. Or direct message. I mean, yeah.
It could be so many things. And of course now Zoom, where we have all of these different ways, different realities. And so I really think that we are definitely at a place where we're at least 50-50, where 50% of what we think happened did happen, and 50% of it are things we've seen and experienced psychologically in some way. And the distinctions, I think, is hard to separate when you think about that is your education and your university that's coming to you. I think we begin to think now that we've lived all over the time map and all over the world because of what we're exposed to. And that was not the case when I was a little boy. You know, it's very, very different. And the thing I do love about it, you see it happening blatantly in film, you know, where there may be a period film now, but when they break form and they go into dance, or the language changes to something that was not it, it's not only hilarious, it's pertinent, in a lot of ways, I think, to who we're becoming.
Have any of you ever had the experience of, well, I'm sure you have, of not being able to photograph a space or go into an area where nothing is allowed, and the fact that your memory is so much more vivid than a photograph? Have you had that happen to you?
Oh, so going to a space and then not being able to capture it as you normally would on your iPhone.
Yes.
Yeah, it does record a different type of memory, I think, on the brain.
Yes.
No, I think absolutely. I think it happens a lot, and I see clients really fumble with that because they are trying to convey something pictorially, but they cannot find it. They know that it's as real as it can be, that they've seen it and that they've been there, but they can't find an example of it to show me a photograph of it. And I understand that because, you know, experientially, we don't live in stills, you know.
Well, Melanie has an advantage. She has an ironclad memory, unlike I have ever seen before. She can bring up conversations from 10 years ago that I have no recollection of, and she's spot on. As soon as she mentions them,
Oh my gosh.
I recall them.
That's scary. I don't know if my office would agree with you, Clint, but thank you very much.
You know, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but you had once reminded me of a conversation we had about the naming of your business, which I had totally forgotten about.
Yeah, well, you have to remember more than me.
So as we've gone through so many of these amazing slides, one common thread that shows up time and time again is both of you devote so much attention to the authenticity and quality of the materials you use. And I know a lot of that has to do with trying to create this sort of timelessness. But Melanie, is this something that clients ask for, or is that something you really have to educate them on? Like, this is why we're doing these plaster walls. This is why we're going to do this mosaic floor. This is why we're doing iron windows. Or is it just they like it aesthetically?
Well, actually, I give credit to Bobby on this, because Bobby always used to say, don't drag your city house to the beach. I love that example, and using authentic materials that you would find in that region is really important. And a lot of times it's important to use those because the weather, I mean, these people have used it for a long time. So the weather is not as harsh on some of the products. So yes, I try to tell the clients, and a lot of times our clients will do a second home first, and a lot of times they're excited about doing something new because they've lived in a home that with their children for a long period of time and nothing's been updated, so they're pulling from every kind of vernacular and look, and they're just beyond excited. It's like Christmas for them, and it's kind of like, no, we're here to edit, we're here to take away, we're here to make it more authentic for you and your family be the focus. Everything else is a canvas and a backdrop. So we tried to explain that.
Well, I think, you know, between Melanie and I, you know, our jobs are different and complementary in that, you know, the architecture is, essentially is this shell, whereas the interiors, is a dowry, of things that come to populate it, and define it in another dimension. But I would say material wise, I don't use materials as a crutch at all. I don't really think about them much until it's time to think about them. And when I do, I spend about as much consideration on what can I use to establish the emotion that I want here that won't date this property because it's trending.
Mm.
And there's so many materials, and some of them very beautiful, that become so popular so fast in certain eras and time,
Right.
that you need to develop an eagle eye for what's going to put a stamp on your property, and on your design that says, oh, I know when that was done because it has tumbled marble in it. That was 1995.
Not exactly.
And I really I really try very hard to create the vaguest timeline possible on structure.
And Melanie, have you had the opportunity to go back and work on houses that you originally did for other people and help?
Yes, actually.
And what was that experience like, kind of
Well, even
analyzing?
ones that I have lived in, which is interesting, and I know Bobby's the same. It's exciting. It's exciting to be able to walk in and see again what has dated and what hasn't, and what still looks good. I'm actually always comforted by the fact that, it looks really good. Maybe the paint color is a little creamier than what I would do today, but it stands the test of time, which is so important. And yet I can look at it with it did take me a moment, because all the memories come flooding back of how we lived there, and I had to disconnect myself and put that family there and build new memories for them. So a lot of things were changed around, but for the most part, I like Bobby. It's nice to see the architecture and see that what we put in there 20 years later, the light fixtures are still in there. Everything that we put in the house is still there. It was more decorative things that we were being hired for. So it's exciting, and it's also a learning experience.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So I have a couple more questions. This is not really on the topic of design, but since we're not together, I feel like I wanted to touch on it. As a lot of us emerge from the last year of being apart and social distancing, have you seen a silver lining from the past year, whether it's through your work or personally? And is there anything you're going to miss about this period, or try to take away from it?
I see so much silver lining to it myself. The continuity of it, the stillness of it, I think has been invaluable for us to understand home and understand how to live in it and how to do things repetitiously within the home and outside of it. I think it's been super valuable. And I think for the boom that's presently going on in the home industry, I think that this pandemic has awakened every dream that people have been sitting on their hands about, things that they want to do someday. It is those things are coming to fruition because there's no time like the present. Do it now. Don't miss getting to do this, and don't be caught dead in a place that you hate, that this happened to you. Make sure if this happens again, that you're someplace that feels like your home to you. And people are doing musical chairs through all over the country now. people are moving, they're changing places, they're going and living in those second homes that they probably were never going to get around to living in. I think it's been a lot of grace has come out of it.
Thank you for that. Melanie?
Yeah, I agree with what Bobby says, and the fact that it's forced us all to slow down and to simplify and to evaluate what's really important to us. I know for myself, one of the big silver linings is the fact that my entire family moved back in to our home. So it feels, it's wonderful. I have 8 people living with me. So that's why I mentioned earlier, I'm the chief at work, but when I go home, I'm no longer the chief. But it's lovely. I never imagined in my lifetime that 3 generations would be living in one home, which is done in a majority of the world, not done here. For whatever reason, when we raise our children, we're done with them at 18 and they're supposed to go into the world, and other countries look at it like, did I do something wrong? So that has given me a lot of joy. And the fact that I feel like the home is where the heart is, and that people are realizing it and realizing that it is the most important. We're running at such a high speed. What are we running to when all we're trying to do is create love and beauty within our homes, and it's right there in front of you? And so that's the gift.
Great, thank you. So looking ahead, just to wrap up a little bit for Q&A, can each of you tell me a little bit about some projects that you're working on that are exciting you, whether it's something personal or for clients? What do we have to look forward to from you?
I am thrilled to be building another house with my partner Blake, and we are having the time of our lives building a new lake house that's practically a little village. And it is, as is everything with my partner, if we're on the fence about something, he really wants us to, why don't we fall the brave way, to the brave side of that question and answer. And so we're doing things that we can do that maybe other people can't do because they have more restrictions with children, with raising families, things like that. But, we're 2 men. We can do anything we want,
I think that's the problem.
even ridiculous things, we can do. But that, and I'll put this out there because it's the strangest thing I've ever even heard of. I'm about to start design work on a house that where a woman has a dinosaur, and it's going to go in the house. And so the house has to hold a fully assembled dinosaur. And I've certainly never done that.
That's one I've never published either. So I'll be eager to see it.
That's hysterical.
It's going to be all the rage, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I've been in a house with a dinosaur print in the stone. That's an actual dinosaur. I can't wait to see that one. That's fun. I would think that the projects that I'm most excited about, I love working in Montana and Cabo because they're totally different with the Rocky Mountains and the beautiful Sea of Cortez. So that we have beautiful projects there that are going on. Historical houses, which are really always fun to work on here in Atlanta. But it's going to be, we're working on an apartment in New York on the Upper East Side, which I'm really excited about. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. It's time for some Q&A. And one question is, there are sometimes wonderful trends that emerge, but they do seem to get over adopted to the point of fatigue. So Melanie, how do you kind of, if there is something that is aesthetically pleasing and it's great, it's a good design, how do you try to work something in that, is trendy, or do you try to steer clear of it?
I try to stay clear of it, and I try to massage it so that it doesn't look so obvious.
Mm.
And then I do it with things that aren't going to be fixed, items that are not going to be fixed to the house, so that if somebody wants to come in there and change a color scheme, it's a pillow or something that's not as expensive to replace. Um, but yeah, it's difficult because people see things and that's the only thing they see. And I try to educate and say, no, we need to calm this down, or let's make the chandelier such as this. This is a visual comfort piece through Erin. This was in a little girl's bedroom and it had just beautiful colors in it. So a piece like this to me is not trendy at all, but it does have a glamorous look to it that a little girl would want. So that's the kind of way that we work.
That's a great example.
Timing.
There is a technical question here. I'll ask it, and if it's too complicated, we can skip it. But love the idea of cleaner ceilings. How do you get around the code for fire, CO2, HVAC, or how are those things incorporated today for either of you?
It's increasingly one of the harder parts of what we do is trying to dodge all of that and trying to wrangle it, and get it out of the mind's camera, as you enter spaces, so that the way that you feel about a space is how it first comes on to you. And so we try to hide a lot of this, a lot of these things that are vying to erode at it.
Not to mention all the smart home technology that has to be buried somewhere.
Exactly. But really to the last question you asked and this one coupled together, to me, Melanie and I have lived long enough that we've seen a lot of things and go by the wayside.
Right.
We saw hot things that everybody had to have show up in Goodwill. and I know that I don't want that to be what happens to what I do. And so I think I like to complicate the timeline again of an interior to protect it from that singular note. So, a mid-century modern house full of mid-century modern furniture, you'll never see coming from me.
Well, yeah. And who wants to live in a museum, right? A period piece.
Yeah, it's too much of a one-note wonder to me.
So Melanie, another question. For a long time, pattern was absent from interiors, and now we're seeing wallpapering and tile with a lot of pattern. Do you see patterns in your projects from the start, or are they layered in later in the process? And I know you often use pattern in sort of more intimate spaces like a powder room or maybe a throw pillow, but I'll let you answer that.
Yes, we don't necessarily, unless we find something that is just amazing, we don't use a lot of pattern. And then I find myself using pattern in places that people would normally not want to use pattern, where it be in some beautiful tile in a bathroom, just because it's unexpected, because those tend to be places that are forgotten or neutralized. So I try to do it in unexpected ways, and also do it in small areas that can, like if someone tires of it. If you really love something, you're not going to tire of it. But like you said, doing powder rooms or doing a guest bedroom, that kind of thing, that if you want to go all out with a wall covering, you can. But yeah, we use wall coverings a lot. We get more of our patterns from carpet and wall covering than we do actual furniture.
And Bobby, do you have any, what's your take on, I know you use a lot of solids, very rich materials, beautiful textures, but not a lot of eye-catching pattern. Where does that come from?
I don't tend to do a lot of it. I think when and if I've ever used it, I used a whole lot of it. you know, to just a drastic standpoint, where it's, you know, it is the walls, the ceilings, the drapery, every fabric, you know, it is the, you know, Sound of Music, you know, make all the kids' clothes out of the drapery kind of approach to it. And so it in its way approaches any color used monochromatically can also be calming.
Right.
And pattern, that works with pattern too.
Yeah. I
So
would
what,
say
oh, go
pattern
ahead.
really comes through art for me more than anywhere else. If you look, like here's a good example of the cover of our books. There's no pattern in that space, but it's just all color and the art. So
Right.
where you think I'm using pattern, I'm really not using pattern.
Right.
Right.
So one last question, and it's actually one for me that I just thought about. So going back, I was just thinking about that article from Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles from, I think, 2007, the house that Bobby designed that you lived in. But have the two of you ever collaborated before?
We will be after this, right, Bobby?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's my goal of being on this call, you know, is that we get to work together because we're great complements to each other.
Oh, so sweet.
You know, I mean, you are the champagne to my bourbon, you know. So it's one is, you know, we're better for one another. So I hope we do get put together. You have put us together. You and your husband Stan have put us together. Yourself in the projects we've done for you personally.
yes.
But we haven't been hired together, and I really do hope that happens because I think we would do a beautiful, unprecedented thing together.
What he's trying to say is we're going to have a beautiful baby together.
Perfect. Well, I know we're all anxious to see the results of that collaboration. I know it'll be beautiful. So I just want to thank both of you so much for sharing your knowledge and inspiration today. It's I know it's inspired a lot of people on the call today. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us. Again, I wish we were together in person in a showroom. We've had at one point over 250 people, so we'd have to be in a very large circus showroom to all fit. So I'm glad we're all here though. As a reminder, I just want to let you know, Circle Lighting has professional lighting designers standing by to help you develop the perfect lighting solution for each and every project. Their architectural lighting labs let you experience options in down lighting, cove lighting, and other layers of light that will illuminate your design story. And if you are unable to visit one of their showrooms, they are ready to serve you virtually. Definitely check out their website. And again, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Melanie. Thanks to Gail and everyone at Circa. It's been a real treat. And again, I hope to see you all soon in the future, in the near future.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Love you both. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.